we think we've spotted something of interest.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks very much like a turbo sitting in there, where it should be under there. Carburation is in the back, and a lot of it. And around here, not a bad old wheel arch, look. Spoiler's still in decent order by the looks of it.
The bad news is that the Montego's paint will need some attention, but there's a consolation prize in the boot.
If you bought a Cortina, you only got one engine. Montegos, you got two, of course. And generally speaking, you needed them both. But maybe this is a good one, eh? Because it's got bubble wrap round it.
Derek seems enthusiastic, and he's more than happy to offer us some guidance.
Buy it for 1,500 quid, spend 8 grand on it, and sell it for 4.5. That's the joy of restorations.
With Derek's forecast ringing in our ears, we choose to ignore it and head for the auction.
1986 MG Montego Turbo. Right colour, right spec. Internet's buying 3.8, 3.9, 3,900. 4 on the internet. 4.1, 4,200, 4,200, 4,003, 4.4, 4.5, 6. On its way. 4,006 on my left. 4,650. 4.7, 4,007. I thought you would. I'm going to sell it. 4,007. Sold in the room. 4,007. Well done. And that's sold to the Bangers and Cash team. And the best of luck with it. Well done.
No favours there. We've paid more than expected, but the plan still might work.
We've got to now finally realise that we've got a whole new generation of buyers coming through. So consequently, MG Montego Turbos are going to be fetching more than Rolls Royces.
We're shipping it out to the motorist near York. Enthusiasts come here to talk about dry sumps and wet clutches. But it's also a sort of resource department for classic cars, where project manager Charlie Gabb is all set for triage.
What was wrong with them back in the day, and what do you remember about them?
Rusting all over. And the only reason this one is still here is because it's not been on the road since it was 8 years old. Amazing that it survived. The interior is nice-ish, just dirty. There's no question it needs painting.
Next, quite a long shopping list of parts we hope we can find.
Well, there's no plugs in it, there's no cam belt on it, there's no alternator on it, and there's no starter on it. Put a battery on it just to see what works.
And what did work?
The lights. The easiest thing to do is to rebuild the engine in the boot and then take this out and swap all the ancillaries over to that.
That's the sound that usually heralds money leaving a bank account. We would really like it not to be completely rotten underneath.
About there?
Yeah, that'll do. Tin.
Please, God, make it solid.
Amazing. Absolutely chuffing mint.
By luck or good judgment, you have actually started with a good base car. The problem you're going to have, I think, is parts. Gone are the days when you can go down the local scrapyard and get a backlight or a headlamp for a Montego. They've all gone, you know, they're all squished. Bit of luck you might find them, but they're going to cost you.
Our Montego Turbo has been assigned to expert renovator Lance Elcock. He's worked his magic on hundreds of classics, but this one could prove challenging.
Taking all the mouldings off the side, ready to see about tackling the rust. You know, where we're going to get these bits for this? Just all the little plastic clips pop off, don't they, and just smash. I can see we've had a few modifications. Look at that for a modification. What is that about?
Honestly, Lance, we have no idea. But we are pleased that the panels seem to be coming off in one piece.
Bit of rust, but hell. Look at it. There we go, matching pair.
All the red bits will need sandblasting before they go anywhere near paint. Deconstruction continues.
Not normally how we take things to bits.
And then, a few days later, we arrived to find this very important component had been freed from its moorings. It too is being dismantled in preparation for a rebuild at a specialist engineering company.
Flywheel off. All this is coming to bits. Oil pump off. Pistons out that are seized in. Poor antifreeze stands in there and carries on corroding, so they put the block in a bath, clean it all up. It's not something that we can do here.
Those in the know will now be saying, that looks expensive. We know. We are concerned.
They say beyond economic repair, don't they? That's what I'd say about a washing machine. But if you've got an attachment to a car that you saw in your youth, then you see that car and that's what draws you to it. You remember sitting in the back as a kid, Dad driving away there, and that's probably what brings future classics along.
Back with our Montego, and it's had a right dressing down over the last few days. It's not in bad condition, but there are some stubborn rust patches.
We've tried with a wire wheel, and that's still left some of the rust there.
For today's remedial action, it's been rehomed in this family-sized tent.
We're going to attack it with a bit of sand before it goes to the body shop. It just really nails it and batters it under pressure and eats into the rust. Whether there's any steel left at the end of it, that's going to be another story, isn't it?
We're also hoping that there's some engine left too. It hasn't been started since the 90s, so we've shipped it down to Castleford for a complete health check. Grandfather and grandson duo Jim and Reese have saved hundreds of power plants from the scrapyard crusher.
You could tell it'd been stood a while.
Well, it's an old engine. It's a long time since we did one as old as that. Nice motors. We're looking forward to doing it.
The cylinder head was cracked, so it'll be replaced. We're hoping the block can be salvaged.
First job, oil pump. That's gone.
Next, the sump, the oil reservoir at the base of the engine.
Oh, wow. Big build-up of rust and old oil, obviously.
Not ideal. Now the moving bits. All kept in perfect cyclic harmony by the crankshaft. Or at least, that's the theory.
So that's what locates the bearing into the actual conrod. In case of just knocking the piston out. It's gone. Yeah, well, the oil ring's certainly stuck.
It's not just the pistons. The cylinders need attention too.
Bores are quite rusted up, like it's going to need a rebore.
A few millimetres of their surface will be machined off and new, bigger pistons added. It's a lot of work and it's going to have a big impact on our finances. Meanwhile, back with the body shell, there's been a conveniently timed handover from Lance to Roger.
He's gone off for a couple of days holiday and he's left me to dig out all the filler. When you look down here, you can see we've got some nice holes there in the bottom of the wheel arch.
What's the worst case scenario here?
A new wheel arch.
It doesn't take long to confirm that someone's been busy with the polyester resin.
Roger, you've gone grey.
Well, it's inevitable. I'm getting old. It's this job.
Over the next hour, there's lots of action with the wire wheel. So much, in fact, that Roger almost completely disappears in a blizzard of dust.
If I could see it, Roger, what have we got?
What have we got? Well, we've got a wheel arch that's absolutely peppered with holes. So in an ideal world, you'd be chopping the arch out and welding a new arch panel in there. It's finding the panel.
And for a moment, we thought we had one. The Montego is a car that hardly anyone has bothered keeping parts for. So Roger, Charlie and Lance made an executive decision.
Charlie was sat down looking on Facebook one night and he saw two of these up for sale.
So we've now bought them?
You give £1,800 for both cars. We need a new windscreen. Also, there's a bit of trim. You can't get this piece for love nor money.
But we've just paid 1,800 quid for that bit of trim.
Yeah. And the rest of the stuff.
The consolation would have been that we could have pilfered some wheel arches, but Roger's got some bad news.
They all appear to be solid, but so did the one on our car. Ideally, you'd want a new arch. You can cut an arch out, but you're more than likely going to distort the metal. So it's better if you could get a freshly pressed arch to go on.
Have you got a freshly pressed?
No, but we're working on it.
Thanks to a bit of online shopping, the Montego is now sporting new filler-free arches. Other parts, like the fuel tank, were saved from the bin.
We sent it away to a specialist and it's treated on the outside and the inside.
It wasn't cheap, but it should be reliable. Meanwhile, Derek's tipped up a bit earlier than we expected.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I'm glad you got that. Yeah, it's gone to town with this, haven't you, so far?
I know it looks in a state, but actually it's a solid motor.
Yeah, solid old car. Yeah, looks a sound old lot, doesn't it?
Surprised to see it in this state?
Yes, I am, yeah. It's going to be a very, very expensive, a very, very losing car, financially. And just hope and pray that there's 2 guys or 3 guys there on the day that cannot live without a Montego MG.
A few weeks later, the Montego finds itself wrapped up like a Christmas turkey, ready for some coats of Targa Red, courtesy of Ian Ellis in York.
Bit of a trip down memory lane for me. I used to work at the local MG Rover dealer. They were very rare in the day, and most of them rotted away. So the fact that this one's still here is quite remarkable.
Modern paints require workarounds to get the same depth of colour as the old-fashioned lead-based ones. Red is particularly tricky.
To make it cover better, we're going to use a ground coat of a dark grey over the top of the primer. It's one of those jobs that gives you a lot of satisfaction because you're seeing a very, very rough-state vehicle becoming almost like it was when it was new back in 1986. Don't get me wrong, I've got no desire to own a Montego. It doesn't look that attractive. It's got absolutely no aerodynamics to it. But I'm pleased that we're preserving another classic car from my days when I was a youngster. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
It's 7 months since we bought the MG Montego Turbo. The paint is better than it left the factory, and the upholstery has been cleaned to the right shade of grey.
It's looking spanking. Yeah, it's looking very nice, isn't it? Yeah, you can't see where we've put them arches in at the back.
Even one of our sacrificial donor cars has proved useful.
The old rims, you can't put ordinary sized tyres on those, like metric and imperial. So we've pinched the wheels off there, we're going to have the wheels refurbed and pop the tyres back on that one.
For the brakes, it was always going to be a full rebuild.
Got the calipers, the old ones that have been refurbed. Nobody's making the new ones anymore. All cleaned up, powder coated, new seals. Going to go on here.
And after 2 months away, much of it sitting in a pickling bath, our engine is back.
It's basically had a full rebuild. Rebar, new pistons, new bearings in the crankshaft. It's had an oil pump. It's been machined on the top. So yeah, we're sort of like ready to stick it back together. On with the gasket. Just make sure we get this the right way around. Yep, that looks okay. So we're having to use the original head bolts, but they're in good condition. When we come to the tightening sequence, there's a special order to put them in.
Each engine has its own preference. Deviation can result in a bad seal and loss of compression.
There we go. I think the next thing is we'll put the cam belt on the front so that the engine's timed up and there's not going to be any damage while anything's being turned.
Most people would have no idea what all this stuff is. But the surprising thing is that even someone like Bill occasionally has his doubts.
So have we any idea where that's going to go?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, you see, that's how it's been taken off. So it clearly goes through somewhere else.
Anyway, with a bit of help from the manual, a few hours later, the Montego's beating heart is ready to be hoisted back into the car.
Take her up. It's a big day, you know. Once we get it back in, it's going to, you know, be more like a car then. Hang on a minute. You the same bracket here? Can you see the hole yet?
Oh, yeah.
Is the hole aligned yet?
Not yet.
So it needs to go further up?
A little bit, yeah.
That's it, that'll do. Right, that's it then, we're in.
Just like that.
Just like that.
I'm sure you're thinking about the cost. So are we.
We'll connect all the ancillaries up and get the wings on, get the front bumper on, and yeah, that's more or less it.
The actual turbo unit that gives this car its name is still being refurbed, but arriving shortly.
What the turbo does is it's two impellers, well, they're like jet turbines, basically. One's in the exhaust and one's in the inlet. And the one in the inlet, it basically draws more air in and forces it through into the engine. The more air you get in there, the more fuel you can put with it, and the bigger the bang you get, and that's what gives you your power.
Jiggle it just a little bit.
When we return in a week, we think this unlikely restoration will become the 7th member of a very exclusive club, Montego Turbos, fit for the road.
Can you go Zan, Craig? Try not to pour it down my leg.
At the motorist, our Montego Turbo is ready to leave the workshop. Roger's changed his tune.
When the Montego came here, first off, I thought, who the hell wants one of them things? But it's the nostalgia for people in my age group. These were the things that you ran around in on a night, had loads of fun, maybe put them on the roof a few times and, you know, had to sort of hide all the damage from your parents. And it's not got the lines of what you call a classic car from the 50s or 60s or 70s. But you're not buying it for the looks, you're buying it for the memories. It's had all the work done to it. You'd be hard-pressed to find something as good as that.
The car's great, we love it, but the cost doesn't sit well. Including tax and commission, we bought the Montego for £5,123. Parts, including the donor cars and the respray, came to £8,650. Labour, including the engine rebuild and 75 hours on the bodywork, came to £13,320, bringing our total to a turbocharged £27,000. After that stark realisation, we sincerely hope Dave likes it.
You ready for it, Dave? I'll be ready. I was born ready, Pete, born ready.
Here you go.
It's a lot shinier than it was last time I saw it. It looks really well. Yeah. This must have been one of your most challenging ones, surely. Must have been. You needed a heart as big as a football to take it on in the first place. Considering what you started with and what you've ended up with, I think it looks good. All right then, mate, let's go for a little spin, eh? The last time I drove a Montego Turbo, I'd have been about 20, I think. And they were an absolute flying machine in the day. And I'll tell you what, it's really strange. You really do go back to 1992, you know, it just feels like yesterday. It's surreal. 140 brake horsepower 1980s car seems so much quicker and more responsive than the same power in a modern car. You did get, you know, a lot more feedback from everywhere. And I suppose that makes it feel more alive. But no, it still drives really well. Whoever ends up with this car is going to be capped to bits.
So here we have the 1986 MG Montego Turbo. I hope the buyer has been and seen it, because if he has, then he's going to be over the moon with it. 11,000, 12,000, 13, 14. You struggle to find another one as nice, I tell you. 14.5, 15 he says, 15.5. The best thing about this job is that you've saved this MG Montego. That's what it boils down to. That's a credit to you. 16, 16.1. 16.1, Andy's sweating here, 16.1.
Is there a nurse in the room?
Yes, 16,100 all done then, 16.1. 2, 3, 16, 4, 16.5, 16.6, 16.7, 16.7, 16.7, 16.8, 16,800, 16.9, 16.9, 16.9 for the first, 16.9 for the second, third and last time, are you sure you're all done? 16.9. Sold, 16,900. There you
Oh, I need to go and lie down.
We're nowhere near a profit, but we're still proud of the car we've brought back to life. And 17 grand for a Montego is definitely some sort of achievement.
Yeah, I think that's fair, isn't it? Probably more than fair, really. I think it's a good shout. It was one of the first purchases, wasn't it? You were finding your feet, weren't you? Those few early cars, the buyers of those have got themselves good value for money cars, haven't they?
You.
What about you? UKTV Play is becoming you.
You? Yes, you. I like it.
I love it. We love you, and we're sure you'll love you too. I love you. UKTV Play is becoming you. The same great shows and a brand new you.